Hi, I'm Iris Ware Martinez, your clerk of the Circuit Court. My team and I are dedicated to providing the citizens of Cook County and the participants in the judicial system with efficient and transparent services. This program is an extension of our commitment to providing information services that empower you to make the best decisions possible. I hope you find this episode helpful. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Armando Sandoval, Associate Clerk for the First Municipal Bureau and your host for this edition of Clerk in the Community. Welcome. Civil division includes various legal matters for claims amounting to less than $30,000. In today's program, we'll be discussing evictions. Now, an eviction is a proceeding where the landlord seeks to restore possession of the premises or payment of rent when the tenant has wrongfully withheld rent or possession of the premises. When a landlord is seeking possession of property and any rent owed, that is known as an eviction joint action. There are two different types of evictions. Residential evictions involving personal living space where the resident resides, and non-residential evictions involving business leasing and rental space in a property. Our office works with various programs and foundations, one of which is Chicago Bar Foundation's Early Eviction Resolution Program to provide landlord and tenants with resources and services to assist in the resolution of their cases. Joining me today to learn more about what you can expect from the Clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County is Aimie Rucinski, Chief Deputy Clerk of the Civil Division, and Bob Glaves, Executive Director of Chicago Bar Foundation. Now, before we start, I just want to note that the Office of the Circuit Court of Cook County is the keeper of the record, meaning we offer information, but we do not give out legal advice. Any legal advice, you should probably consult with an attorney or some of the volunteer legal organizations that you can find throughout the county. So let's start with Aimie Rucinski. Now, Aimie, if you could, tell me about Civil Division and the type of cases that are heard there.
Sure. So the Civil Division is the largest division within the clerk's office, and we hear all civil claims under $30,000. The types of cases that we hear in the Civil Division are evictions, breach of contract, property damage, torts, consumer debt, housing cases, just to name a few. We also hear small claims cases, which are all cases suing for $10,000 or less. If someone is suing for more than $30,000, they should be filing in the Law Division.
Okay. Now, I already described to the audience what an eviction is. And I talked about residential or commercial. But I also talked about joint action and possession only. What's the difference between those two?
So when someone wants to file an eviction with our office, they first have to determine if it's going to be residential or commercial. So a residential eviction is where you're trying to evict a person that's residing at a property, whereas a commercial eviction, you're trying to evict a business, such as a store. Then you have to determine if it's going to be a joint action or a possession-only case. Joint action is where you're trying to recover both back rent as well as possession of the property. And with possession only, as the name indicates, you are just strictly, you just want possession of the property back.
Okay. Now, going a little off script, before you worked for the Clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County, you were an attorney, correct?
Correct.
And you also did evictions, correct?
That is correct.
And in your practice, what type of evictions did you handle?
Yeah, I handled residential.
Residential?
For the most part, yes.
And the parties, did you represent just tenants or did you rent both? Or
for the most part, 95% of the time I represented landlords.
Okay. So even before coming to the Clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County, you were familiar with the eviction process?
That's correct.
Okay. So if a landlord wants to evict a tenant, what are the steps that a landlord needs to take?
Yeah, so prior to filing an eviction case, they have to give written notice to the tenant. And that would be either in the form of a 5-day, 10-day, or 30-day notice. So you would give a 5-day notice for non-payment of rent, excuse me. 10-day notice for violation of a lease agreement. So, for example, if a lease says that you can't have pets and the tenant owns a dog, they would have to give you a 10-day notice. And lastly, a 30-day notice is when you want to terminate a month-to-month tenancy.
All right. Say someone, a landlord, does not want to hire an attorney or can't afford one. What resources are available to them? And are these resources available to tenants as well?
Yes. So whenever I speak to landlords, I always encourage them to speak to any free legal aid entity. There's many out there. But usually we refer them to CARPLs, or we refer them to Chicago Volunteer Legal Services, also known as CVLS.
Okay, and those organizations are pretty big in the community. Anyone can find them in a phone book or Google or whatever search engine, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, in your experience, how long does the eviction process take, from filing all the way to that final order that the judge gives to the parties?
Yeah, so it depends. Yeah, so from the time that they give notice to the tenant to the time that the sheriff actually comes out to evict takes several months. My guess would be about 4 to 6 months. But there's a lot of factors that play into that. So how long it took to get the tenant served, whether the case ended up going to trial, and if there was any motions filed either pre-trial or after an eviction order was entered.
Okay, so just like any case, once you if the parties can agree on some type of resolution, that's the quickest way for a case to go through the system, correct?
Correct.
Which brings us probably to our next guest, Bob Glaves, the executive director for the Chicago Bar Foundation. Now, Bob, I apologize. I called it the Early Eviction Resolution Program, but it's really just what we call ERP, or Early Resolution Program, correct?
That's right, Armando. It does cover evictions, but also covers consumer debt cases, which we're not talking about today, but which are another big area of the court.
And that's because for civil division, and when I say civil division, this also includes the suburban districts.
Correct, all through Cook County, right.
We're talking about probably the two heaviest case types in the county, evictions and consumer debt, correct?
Yeah, traffic court is probably your other one that would rival that, but other than that, I think these are probably the highest volume, yes.
Okay. And just, if you can, what is the Early Resolution Program, if you can describe it, and why it was implemented?
Sure. So it's a program that's created for evictions and consumer debt cases, as we talked about, and it's to kind of reshape the court process for those kind of cases where everybody is going to, when they first come to court, if they don't have a lawyer and haven't been able to talk to a lawyer, they're going to have an opportunity to meet with a lawyer before their case moves forward. So the process starts with what's called a case management hearing, where if you don't have a lawyer with you, whether you're a landlord or a tenant, you will be able to meet with a case manager who will connect you to a number of legal aid organizations who are partners in the program, including the two you were just talking about, CARPLs and Chicago Volunteer Legal Services. And they also will evaluate whether you might be able to get court-based rental assistance, whether mediation might be helpful to try to resolve the case with your landlord. But basically to try to figure out what's going on. Aimie described the different kind of cases that can get filed against you, the different kind of notices you can get, depending on whether the landlord is looking for rent, to get their unit back, or both, and why the reasons they're filing. So a lawyer will help you evaluate your options. Again, if it is about non-payment of rent, which most cases are, whether rental assistance might be an opportunity that you can get to pay the rent and be able to stay or resolve it with your landlord. But one way or another, it's almost always better for the parties to try to resolve a case. You talked about the process taking time, but also it's just better for everybody if you can resolve a case amicably, even if it means the tenant is going to move. They can move with a free hand to be able to start up again. The landlord can re-rent their place, and everybody can kind of move forward if you can come to an agreement. Where that can get a little more complicated if a case goes all the way to trial and the sheriff has to come out. So the idea is to try to concentrate these resources, build into the court process this extra time for folks to be able to have time to be able to evaluate their options, to be able to talk to each other and see if they can resolve a case. And it's really it's a huge partnership between the Circuit Court of Cook County, the clerk's office, the city, the county, and many different legal aid and community partners. So, and the Chicago Bar Foundation is helping manage that for the court.
Now, Bob mentioned other organizations. I didn't want to leave them out, but he's referring to some of them. Legal Aid Chicago, that's one organization that does a lot of work with the ERP program. Also, Lawyers for Better Housing. That's another foundation that works with the ERP program and with the courts, and they provide really an invaluable service to the community. Now, if everything's great and goes through the ERP program, that I think for both sides it's great. Not even both sides, all sides, court as well. It's great for the court, but unfortunately, sometimes things don't work out through the ERP process. So what happens then?
Yeah, and unfortunately that does happen. I mean, as much as it makes sense for everybody to come to an agreement, not everybody sees things the same ways in their cases, and it's not always possible. So the case will then go back on a normal track like Aimie was describing. It will move to what was called a trial call, where it'll be assigned to a judge to set the case for trial. And that doesn't happen like instantly. It won't be like that day. But it'll take a few weeks to get the new assignment, and then the case will proceed as it would. Now, the resources I mentioned that are available to everybody in ERP, you're only going to be able to continue to get legal help through the ERP program if the lawyer who is working with you in the beginning has evaluated your case as having a legal defense, if you're a tenant. Then you might be able to get further representation that way. Or if you're especially vulnerable, like there are some people who are really just not going to be able to handle the case on their own, who may be able to get more help. More likely than not, though, you're going to be on your own at that point. There are some other resources, though, available to help people even past the ERP part of the case that are useful to know about, though.
Right.
And I can tell you a little bit about those. So there's there's a hotline that is part of the ERP program as well. So you can call a special hotline, and that will be running across your screen, I think, when you're watching this program. But it is a special hotline set up specifically for landlords and tenants who can call in this number and be able to talk to a lawyer at any stage of the case. And they can help you with the process from there. There also is a program through the court that's available in person in the Daly Center, but is available virtually all over Cook County, which is called the Municipal Court Advice Desk, where you can get help with from a lawyer with some of the pieces of your case that follow that time too. So you're not completely on your own, but
Right.
You're going to be handling most of the case on your own.
And I don't want people out there to think that this is only in Chicago. The services that are offered, where cases are heard, these type of eviction cases, yes, in Chicago, they're heard at the Daly Center, which we call Civil Division. But these are the type of services that you can find in any of the suburban districts, whether it's Skokie, and I'll just go down the list. Skokie, Rolling Meadows, Maywood, Bridgeview, and Markham. ERP programs out there as well, and also the legal organizations that Bob was just talking about.
Armando, you just reminded me of something important to tell everybody, which is the ERP program and this part of the court process all happens on Zoom. So it's all available to you wherever you are in the county, and you don't have to come all the way down to court to participate. You can, as long as you can get on Zoom, you can do that in your home, in your home, on your phone. Sometimes people are doing it. But if you do need some help getting on Zoom and participating, you can come down to court at either downtown or at the suburban districts that Armando was referencing, and there is a Zoom room available in each of those places where there are some folks who can help people do that. The clerk also has a helpline that you can call, and they can help you connect to Zoom too as well if you're having trouble. So that's another way the clerk's office is helping with this program.
Oh, thanks, Bob, for reminding us about that. It totally slipped my mind. Now,
mine too. I think that would probably be helpful for people to know that, right?
Yeah. So, say an eviction happens, and it didn't go through the ERP process. You talked about it briefly. Sheriff has to come out, right, with that signed eviction order. How long does it take for the sheriff to get out there?
So
usually?
normally, if once an order is entered by the judge that you're going to be evicted, you will have a date in the order. The tenant will have a date that they need to leave the premises, and if they don't, that's when the sheriff can come out. So once that date hits, it usually takes about 3 to 4 weeks for the sheriff to come out. If you happen to be in that situation and you're a tenant, the sheriff does have a social services connector, they call it, where you can call and they may be able to help you with some of the process of dealing with that and trying to find a place to live at that point. Again, all the things that we just talked about are really structured to try to avoid that situation as much as possible, to find better alternatives. But if it does come to that, it's usually going to take about 3 to 4 weeks, and the sheriff will try to help as much as they can.
All right. Now, Aimie, we did talk about generally all these resources that landlords and tenants can use. But if you could just talk about, for tenants, other than hiring an attorney, what resources are available to them?
Yeah, so we also, again, I would refer them to CARPLs, again, CVLS. There's also Metropolitan Tenants, Metropolitan Tenants Organization, Lawyers Committee for Better Housing, Legal Aid Chicago, as well as if you live in the city of Chicago, you can contact Rents Rights.
And at the Daily Center on your floor, there's actually a service for self-represented litigants as well, correct?
Yes, so Kent Law School will come to the 6th floor of the Daily Center 3 times a week and assist people with filling out paperwork and answering any legal questions they have.
Okay.
Yeah, and now you can, if you really need that kind of help in person, in the Daily Center, they have those options at the advice desk I mentioned, or at the help desk that Aimie just mentioned. But you can call the clerk's helpline, and they will be able to walk you through that on the phone and help you do that remotely too, so you don't have to come all the way in, or if you happen to be in the suburbs and that's not convenient. The other thing is all of those legal aid resources, just again, you can call that special hotline, that ERP hotline, at any part of your case, and they will connect you to those very same organizations. And there's some other ones as well that we didn't get a chance to talk about, but Legal Aid Society, Metropolitan Family Services is one, Center for Disability and Elder Law, and Lawyers Committee actually just changed their name to Law Center for Better Housing, right? So
That's
they're
right.
still LCBH, but they have a new name.
Michelle's going to kill me.
So yes, but same services though, and they are, the organizations as you all mentioned. CARPLs runs that hotline, so the help, the special hotline for ERP as well. So
Okay, and that hotline, everyone out there, as Bob mentioned, there might be a phone number flashing at the bottom of the screen that you can call and you can get those services. But you can also find them on the clerk's website, and I'll give that address out in a little bit. But just to close, evictions can be difficult and require both parties to have patience to come to a resolution. Clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County provides the participants in the judicial system with efficient and transparent services. This program is a means to that end. So I'd just like to thank Bob Glaves with the Chicago Bar Foundation and Aimie Rucinski, Chief Deputy Clerk for the Civil Division of the Clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County. Thank you very much.
Armando, can I just?
Sure.
We forgot. We were talking about all the legal aid partners. I forgot one of our most important partners in this program, and without whom we could not do the program. The Center for Conflict Resolution provides mediation services, but they also provide the case managers. And as we were talking about legal aid, it slipped my mind that I knew there was one other partner we hadn't talked about, and I do not want to leave this tape without acknowledging the important role they're playing. It's central to the whole thing. So.
I'm glad that you brought that up, and I'm sure our audience appreciates that. And again, you can find information about these organizations through our website. For more information, go to www.cookcountyclerkofcourt.org. That's cookcountyclerkofcourt.org. You may also call 312-603-5030 for more information.